the BB3 Blueprint. So this is something that I've been doing a long time. And so when I used to stand there and train people, I would always track like what clients got the best results. And one of the reasons why we have the program the way it is now is because that has been the most effective thing. And what it was is when I was training The Rock, this is the first time I did it for somebody because he traveled so much, is I would talk to him and we would set the North Star. We didn't call it that at a time, but we had this whole plan of like, what is the outcome? What's the purpose of it? And how do we need to show up? What states do you need to embody each day in order to carry out this plan, to fulfill the mission? That's where we start. That's the North Star process. We always had that. And then he'd come in like once a month and we would measure everything. So we knew, and for him, it was body composition. So when I first met him, he was kind of puffy. Like he'd just coming from wrestling and he had a lot of, you call it baby fat. Like he was big, but he was not lean. And he needed to be lean because he was going into the movies and he didn't want to be so big that he dwarfed everyone because he couldn't get the roles he wanted to get. He didn't want to get pigeonholed into like an action movie star, and which is what he does now. But at the time, he wanted to be taken seriously and do different types of roles. That's the short answer. So it's really smart. And so he would come in like at least once a month, or we measured a lot actually. But what really worked is when we did it once a month, we measured, I gave him the plan. So here's your blueprint, brother. Here's your treasure map. And like any good treasure map, it's not easy getting there. There's gonna be obstacles. There's gonna be challenges. We gotta navigate these. You can ask me anything, I got your back, but ultimately, this is up to you, my friend. I'm giving you the treasure map. I'm giving you the blueprint. It's up to you to build a masterpiece, right? And so he would do it, obviously. And so he had his nutrition plan, his training plan, he did it, and then 2 to 4 weeks later, we would measure again, and then we would make adjustments. I would show him any changes or anything. We would discuss it. Sometimes it was just on text. But ultimately, what came about it is he had to take a certain amount of responsibility. And so I started offering this to other clients, and they would come in once a month, and a lot of them I never talked to. I just, sent them the message. I just gave them the plan. And they would make incredible results because they weren't relying on me to get them to do stuff. So the other clients, I would be physically there, and they would show up because like, oh, I didn't want to come today because of this, and this, but I didn't want you to charge me if I didn't show up. And at the time, I thought it was funny. I thought I was helping them, but looking back, I realized I was harming them in a way. I wasn't challenging them to take ownership of themselves, to take responsibility for their actions. They were relying on me. So if I traveled or I couldn't get them in the schedule because I was so busy, that they would just say, oh, Billy's fault, right? Not mine. And so they would never make there's some people that did, but I'm saying for the most part, that structure wasn't the best. But then when I would have them on the other clients, they'd come in and we'd measure and boom, they'd make progress. And they would come in and be like, hey, give me 2 more weeks. I really want to get 2 more weeks in before we measure. I'm like, all right, cool. And then he realized I just taught him how to measure after that, right? But it became this thing where it's like, I will give you the blueprint and I will teach you the principles. And above all, I will remind you of who you are and what you're capable of. And that's what a great coach does. But here's the rule. Too much accountability makes you weak. If you have someone else that you're only showing up because they're there, that there's something there that's missing. That's not mastery, my friend. That is not what we're going for. If you're in this group, you're different. That's fine for some people, but those people probably aren't going to make a lot of progress. They just don't have that desire. They don't have that will in them. And so they're just looking to, like some people train so that they can eat whatever they want. That's what they think. It doesn't work that way though. But what I want to invite you to do is I'm going to give you a blueprint here. And you already have it if you're hearing this. And it's your treasure map. And that treasure map, like I mentioned before, it's an adventure. You need to accept the call to adventure each month. And just look at the month like a game or like a season, like for sports. And life is a game. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about, did you give your best? And if you didn't, what did you learn from it? So keep that in mind. So this month is all about understanding the power of structure, the power of a routine, the power of consistency. And when you learn this with your body, it carries over into every other area of your life. Because while we focus on your body, that's the cool thing is the body is just a reflection of what you do and what you don't do. That's it. It doesn't have any feelings or opinions about anything. It just is a reflection. If you ate too much, something's gonna happen. If you didn't eat enough, something's gonna happen. If you ate the right amount, something's gonna happen. The body will reflect what you're doing. So like, well, I'm not eating that much, but you gained 5 pounds of fat. It's like, well, for you, that's too much. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It has nothing to do with that. But if you keep doing it, then why? Well, there's a belief there. So we need to get the root of that belief and change it. And we can talk about that, but the way you change a belief is you discover it, you reveal it. And anytime you're in a negative state, a fear-based emotional state, that is a gift. That is when your higher self is showing you, hey, you're doing something here that's creating a result you said you don't want. What story are you telling yourself? What are you focusing on right now? What would you have to believe in order to feel this way in this scenario? And then you can get to the root of it. And usually just the fact that you bring it to the conscious mind instead of the subconscious, it unravels it and it doesn't have the same power. And you'll notice it next time it comes up and you'll kind of laugh at it and you're like, oh, but it doesn't have that grip on you anymore. Now, people don't like to hear this because it means that every thought matters and that it's your responsibility and there's not like a secret technique. I just told you the secret technique. This is that level of self-awareness, self-honesty, and personal responsibility. Those are the 3 prerequisites everybody needs to achieve or change or improve anything in their lives. So what I want to invite you to do is to accept the call to adventure and follow this blueprint. You don't have to do it, but I want to teach you different ways of changing your body, changing your energy. So this month it's about eating for energy. How do we do that? Well, we're going to remove more toxins. We have a protocol that, we're inundated with toxins all the time, but our bodies have the capability to clear these things and not be impacted, but we got to give the body what it needs. One of the most important things is movement. It's incredibly important, but also you need certain nutrients to do that. So in this month's blueprint, we have that all put together for you. And also we structure the meals where we're eating carbohydrates later in the day. Now, some people think won't that make me fat? No, if you believe that, that's someone lied to you because it's the total amount of food you eat in a 24-hour period that matters. What do carbs do? Well, carbohydrates, and I'm talking about carbs from Mother Nature, not processed like Doritos and stuff, right? But good carbs, high octane carbs, cause the release of serotonin and dopamine. It calms us, it soothes us. So when people cut out their carbs for too long, they usually start to wake up in the middle of the night. They have these blood sugar level drops and then what happens is the body produces adrenaline to wake you up because blood sugar is low. And so when you eat carbs, the way is in this month's blueprint, you will notice that your sleep will improve. You'll feel more energized throughout the day and it creates more of an even energy. But the only way to find out is by experimenting with it, to have this structure, to have a goal, measure before, follow the plan, and at the end of the month, measure again and compare the results. That is how you master things. That is how you learn things. That is the scientific method. And so when you look at the blueprint, it's called Fire Fuel Nutrition System, Eating for Energy. And so I'm going to read this to you just because if you don't have the time to read it, I want to make sure that you hear this part. Imagine it's September 1st. It's about 16 weeks from now, and you feel incredible. Your body is bursting with energy. Your body moves with strength, agility, and ease like a panther on the prowl. Your joints are no longer stiff or achy. You feel renewed, rejuvenated. Your body is leaner, stronger, and you feel light and powerful. You kept your promise to yourself and you followed the blueprint. What happened? How did this all come to be? During the previous 16 weeks, you honored your body and all of its cells with intelligent movement, nourishment, consistency, and you expelled the toxins that were weighing you down and robbing you of the energy you deserve. Now, if you're willing to follow the plan over these next few months, then this could be you. And so, why? Why now? Well, that's the question you have to ask yourself. You need a North Star, something that pulls you forward. And that's a little taste of what I just said. You want to go to the future and tell the story of victory and triumph. And each day you step into it and you embody it. And on top of that, you say, who do I need to be in order to have a body that I'm proud of, that inspires me, and that's bursting with energy? What do I need to do today so that when I'm 80, 90, 100, 120, I can run, I can jump, I can swim, that my body has a powerful posture and presence? Like, what do I need to do today? Most people wait until it's too late. That's what my own mother did. And it's heartbreaking to see that in the people you love. But it really comes down to what you do today, taking one day at a time and living it. And there's just a handful of things you got to do. It's simple. If you look at the 3 pillars of power, and just as a basis, like the super simple thing, you need 3 things. 1, you need to do consistent and challenging resistance training and physical training. So that means cardio and resistance training. And then like we do, we always build in structural balance and mobility. So you need physical training. The second thing is you need an effective eating plan, something you can sustain and that's healthy, not something that's just super restrictive, right? And then the third thing is mental conditioning. You need to train your mind first. That changes the body. So before you change your body, you must first change your mind. But everything that's ever been created first began in the theater of the mind as an idea. Then you start thinking about more and you start asking questions like, what if this happened? What if we did that? Oh, I should talk to that person because they know something I don't know. What I learned this. Okay, how can we apply this? And you start to notice opportunities. You start to notice patterns, and then you start to make progress. And then if you keep focusing on that vision, that North Star, that process continues, and before you know it, you've created something powerful, something life-altering, something that you're really proud of. And anyone can do that. And so with this blueprint this month, you'll go through it, and everything you need is here. So first of all, you got to be consistent with your training, and you got to train your mind with your body. So you need that powerful North Star. And then you're going to just look at this fuel up routine. Like, hey, what's my structure? You always want to know what you're going to eat. But when you wake up, you don't want to just react and say, oh, I'm feeling hungry. What should I eat? Or ask this question. What do I feel like eating? Never ask that question. No one ever said broccoli, you know? And so you want to say, okay, why am I eating? And what does my body need to perform at its best? Like, those are better questions. And so what we're going to do is each day we're going to start with a fire protein shake. You could eat food if you want. There's a bunch of options in here. There's recipes. There's a million different fire and fuel meals, whatever. You can interchange these, but just as a structure here. Fire meal for your first meal and second meal. And so your third and fourth meal is fuel meals. The only difference is you're going to add high octane carbs later in the day so that your body produces more serotonin and dopamine, and you can fall in that deep restorative sleep, and the adrenaline calms down, cortisol levels, the stress hormone comes down as well. And then you want to make sure that you walk enough, daily activity. So you want to set a goal. According to the research right now, it's around 7,000 steps where there's positive benefits. But really, if you're only walking 1,000 a day, your goal should be 2,000. You don't want to jump all the way up there. You want to do things gradually. Just be intelligent with it. And so I personally walk 10,000 miles, or not 10,000 miles, but 10,000 steps per day, just on the low end, and usually much higher than that, just because I think better when I move. So if I'm doing a call or I'm doing something like that, I'm usually walking the whole time. But one thing you can do is after your final meal, go for a walk. You know, take someone with you that you don't usually get to talk to very much. You know, walk your dog. You can talk to your dog too, right? But do a little debrief on your day and talk about like, hey, what happened today? What did I learn today? And what makes me feel successful, happy, and fulfilled today? What was 3 memorable things? And then what it is, it's closing the chapter on the day, because we need to tell the mind that, hey, game over today, new game begins when the eyes open in the morning. And so a lot of people in our group especially is like, we get caught up and we get inspired sometimes, or we just get consumed mentally with things and we have trouble turning it off. So having a daily nighttime ritual where you debrief, de-stress, and clear the slate, clear the mind, And there's a phrase that we use a lot with a bunch of my athletes. And so before every practice, before every fight, before every event, it goes like this. You touch your third eye, like I'm going for it, say clear mind. Then you put your hands over your heart and open your hands up. So it's clear mind, open heart, and then now it's time to start. And it clapped 3 times. And what we're doing is we're creating an anchor. And so every time we're feeling victory, we feel like something's going great, we're in that state of being, we'll say clear mind, open heart, now it's time to start, 3 claps. And so now there's a button, the button to unleash the lion, your highest and best self, the heart-driven leader in you, the part of you that's unstoppable. But that's an anchor and anyone can do it. That's just one example. You can do whatever the heck you want though. But in this blueprint, there's a couple things that I want to explain. One is the adrenal detox cocktail. Now, do you have to do this? You don't, but let me explain the reasoning behind it and why it's helpful. When you wake up in the morning, your adrenal glands are what wake you up. They produce cortisol, and cortisol makes you feel alert. When we get in the sun, that also happens. But there are some things that can be really beneficial. One, green tea or matcha. Research shows that this actually helps remove heavy metals. Green tea, black tea does too, or matcha. But there's also some other constituents in there that are helpful for clearing toxins. Another one that we add is liquid chlorophyll. So you can get, there's a bunch of brands on this, but some are spearmint flavored or peppermint flavored, they're very good. But you get a dropper full of that, and chlorophyll helps bind to toxins and heavy metals. So that's a very beneficial thing. And it's really easy to do. It doesn't cost much either. The other thing is something that's found in nature. It's called humic or fulvic acid. Now, these are minerals. And so minerals, I won't get real deep on the science here, but I'll tell you the short version. Like your cells have receptor sites where they can receive messages, right? And so if you take enough minerals, those receptor sites are taken, so nothing else can attach to them. If they're available and you're exposed to heavy metals, those heavy metals will attach to those receptor sites. And so we can prevent the absorption of certain heavy metals by adding something like this. Plus, it supports the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands need a couple things. It needs vitamin C, it needs trace minerals, and it needs sodium, salt. So the next couple things are gonna make total sense. Juice from 1 lemon or a half lemon, and that gives you vitamin C. And then the next thing is a natural salt. So like a pinch, it's like, I think it's 1/8 of a teaspoon if you were to measure it. And ideally it's Redmond or Celtic salt because a recent study showed that those had less toxins in them. Himalayan salt in this study, I don't know if not all Himalayan salt would have this, but in this recent study showed that it had microplastics in it. That's why I'm recommending Redmond or Celtic salt, okay? There's also a salt called Arctic salt, but they didn't test that, so I'm not sure. So that's the adrenal detox cocktail. So you would have this when you wake up. Does it give you energy? Well, yeah, it does. And it is a thing that you can do but any time of day, but ideally you do it early in the day to support the adrenal glands. And you don't have to do it at all if you don't want to. If you do it later in the day, cut out the green tea or matcha, so there's no caffeine. Caffeine has a half-life in the body of 8 hours, which means if you took 100 milligrams of caffeine, 8 hours later, there's 50 milligrams still active in the body. And then 8 hours later, you have 25 and so forth. Got it? So just because you have it earlier doesn't mean it's affecting you. So you want to have it within the first few hours of waking up, ideally for optimal sleep, okay? Now there's some recommended protein powders in it. Now these are links, so just click on them and it will take you to the link. These are third-party tested for purity, and so these are ones I would recommend. But you can take other ones. If you want me to check it out, just send me a picture of it or a link to it in the chat and I'll check it out for you. But the supplement industry is pretty sketchy. And so if you're getting supplements that are reputable brands, they're gonna need to do third-party testing. It's gonna cost more money. So if you're getting a really cheap supplement, we probably don't know what's in it. And I'll go through supplement stuff later, but supplements by definition add to something. They add to your nutrition, eating real food. They add to your training. They add to your sleep. They add to your mental conditioning. So those are the big rocks, the things that really matter. The rest of the blueprint is sample meal plans. You do not need to follow this exactly. Like follow the principle. So you have a fire meal, fuel meal, fuel meal. And then also you'll notice 3 times a week, you can do free meals. Now a free meal is any food you want, just a normal size. So it shouldn't be bigger than both your hands, right? And don't stack it up. So, you can't lie to your body. If you get carried away, you're gonna know. But ultimately, we should be free from food. We shouldn't be enslaved to it. And so you want to learn to eat intuitively. I just did a coach cast on how to eat, the process. And it's about learning to eat mindfully, intuitively, to connect to your body so that you don't have all this restriction. You're not making yourself do it. You're choosing to do it because you want to have the energy and you feel satisfied. So it's really important, but it is a process. You only get there through a process of mindfulness and understanding, contemplation, and structure. So if you're going to do random things, expect random and very little success. Random actions produce little, if any, results. Usually it creates more problems. So what we want to do is, hey, here's the structure of my plan. That's what the blueprint's all about. It's your treasure map. But you have a structure so you know, like, hey, this is the plan for today. And how freeing is it to know what the plan is and not having to think of it every day, starting anew? When we make decisions in advance, that increases our self-control, our willpower, our decision-making capabilities. And that's from over 40 years of research from Dr. Roy Baumeister of Florida State University. He wrote a book on willpower that's highly recommended, but I told you everything pretty much just there. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about is on Sunday. This is optional, but this is about self-mastery. This is about mastering food too. So most of us don't know what it's like to be physically hungry, like actually starving. And that's a blessing. So we often say, oh, I'm starving, and we're like ravenous. But we want to separate the emotional hunger, the stress eating, from physical hunger. And the only way to do that is through fasting. So on Sundays, I do this to this day. I fell in love with it after a while. At first, I was terrible at it and I was miserable, but I was trying to live in a beautiful state from it. At first, I didn't make that a rule. So I just did it and then I suffered because I did not bring the mind to the party. And so on Saturdays, I'll usually have my last meal around 6 p.m. and then I'll go for a walk. And then, that's it for eating. I might drink like a warm beverage or something like dandelion tea or honeybush tea or rooibos. And then all day Sunday, I don't eat. So since I finished around 6 p.m., I'll have one meal on Sunday and it will be around 6 p.m. So I have a 24-hour fast. Now, do you have to do this? You don't have to. So, but during the day on Sunday, you can have like a warm beverage. Like you can have that dandelion tea that supports the liver. You can have bone broth or vegetable broth, green tea or organic coffee. That can help with just the hunger and energy. But you can also use like a cold shower, or you could use a sauna. Like, don't stress yourself out with this, but just use hot and cold in movement, like walking, stretching, but don't train like crazy this day. And use this as a time to connect with your body and become a master of really your hunger, but more on your focus. Because a lot of times we start to think about certain things and it affects our adrenaline, and then we go and start eating. And so this is an invitation. You don't have to do this, but if you're gonna do it and you're not used to fasting, start by cutting out one meal that day. So cut out the first meal the first week. The second week, depending on how it goes, you can cut out the second meal. And then the third week, everything's going good, you can cut out the third meal, and now you're there. Now you're at a 24-hour fast. And then on Monday, you go right back to it. The big thing is you do not binge after this. Go back to the plan. I wouldn't have a free meal at this time. I would have a fuel meal. I would have a meal that's filling and nutrient dense, but don't allow the emotions to take over. So like, you don't want to gut it out for 24 hours and then, binge. So if you're afraid of doing that, don't do it. You don't have to do this. But if you want to master food, if you want to become a master of yourself, food is one of those categories that's really important. All right, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up here. I need to go help the big guy. But if you have any questions, first look at the blueprint. It better be in there. And if it's not, let me know, and then I'll make sure it's in the next one. Hey, I appreciate you, and I'm really excited for what's to come. You're destined for something great, my friend, and I'm honored to serve. Thank you.
You tap into the real you, but you have to retrain yourself. The way you retrain yourself is you wake your ass up in the morning and you say, I am here for a reason and a purpose. And it's bigger than my moods. It's bigger than the difficulties of the day. I am here to live like a lion, not the fear of a lamb.